And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Lee Povey. Well, first of all, Lee, thank you for taking some time out of your schedule and being with me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here, Michael.
It is going to be a great conversation. So Lee runs a coaching company. He can help you develop your Olympic mindset. And when I saw that, I thought, that grabbed my attention, the Olympic thing. So I want to hear a little bit more about that. But he really helps you understand how to get into your head and out of your head so you can get more things done. I think that's what we're going to be talking about. So tell me, Lee, you've got a vast background. How in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Kind of by accident, Michael.
Okay.
Without realizing it, I was severely dyslexic, or I am severely dyslexic. Did not know that at school. I was on the national junior team for GB as a track sprint cyclist. So that's an event that lasts less than 45 seconds.
Okay.
And realized I wasn't quite good enough to be an Olympic champion. I was kind of good national, lower international level, but I wasn't going to be an Olympic champion. So further schooling didn't really work for me and didn't appeal for me. Although I was good at school, the message I constantly got told was, you're really bright, but you're lazy. Anyone that knows me now would realize that I am absolutely not lazy and never really have been. I just didn't understand how to learn like other people. And I've only sadly figured that out fairly recently within the last 5 years. So that led me down an alternate path. I didn't go to college. I became a salesperson. So I worked in real estate. I had my own company for 6 years. That was my first foray into entrepreneurism. I sold that company when I realized that I didn't love being a real estate agent. I liked being good at things and I liked learning things and understanding things. And I really liked understanding human beings. So I sold that company. I wasn't sure what to do. A friend of mine, wise friend of mine, said, look, take some time off, go ride your bike. I started training more seriously again, competing again, won a national championships. A few people said, hey, could you coach me? And I'd already coached a couple of young athletes that had become national champions at that point as well. So that's when my cycling coaching career started. So I was a cycling coach for 15 years, the last 3 of which I was the Olympic development program coach for USA Cycling after I'd moved from the UK to California. And then COVID came. And at this point, I was already thinking, I want to get out of cycling. I'd feel, you feel like you get to the end of that journey. There's not a lot more for me to learn here. I need a new challenge.
Okay.
And I was much more interested in the psychology and the mental aspect of performance and the physical aspect of performance. So a lot of my study was already in that direction. COVID came. I listened to a podcast from a leadership coach. I didn't even know leadership coaches existed, didn't know the world existed.
You know, that was a thing.
Yeah, didn't know that was a thing. And at the same time, I was watching a show called Billions, and there's a performance coach on that called Wendy Rhodes, his character. My wife's a psychotherapist, has her own private practice. She looked at me and she said, I think that's what you should be doing. And I was literally listening to the podcast from a leadership coach at the same time. And I said, I think you're right. So, I went on courses, went on a variety of different courses, training, one 9-month one, which was quite pivotal and transformational for me. And as I was finishing that, I set up my coaching practice. The first couple of years, I coached a variety of people to figure it out. Who's my people? Who am I best suited to? And then I rebranded my company to the current iteration of it. And I am quite strong on who I coach. And it is founders and their teams predominantly, plus elite sports coaches.
I like it. All right. So tell me, because I hear this a lot, and I think it's important to define terms, right? High performance coach. Coach, what is that? What does that mean?
To me, it means looking at yourself, discovering who you are, what you bring to the world. So your particular gifts, what are the talents that you have, uncovering what is getting in the way of you expressing those as freely, easily, clearly as you can. So what is the adaptive mechanisms that you took on in your childhood, in your community, because you had certain genetic traits that met the world and the world responded to you, your family responded to you. If you're a really smart kid and you're asking lots of questions, your parents might say, I need a break, like stop asking questions. So you learn that
Yeah.
it's not good to be curious and it has a negative impact. So
Hmm.
you kind of hide that. And then you get into the world at large. And now actually being curious and asking lots of questions might be a benefit to you. So
Hmm.
it's figuring out who you are, what's getting in the way of you being the best version of yourself, and then where you want to get to. So coaching is pretty simple. Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? We coach the gap in between. So what needs to change for you to get to where you want to get to?
Okay.
And then the high performance part of it is just my people tend to be the smartest person in the room, the most capable person in the room, may intimidate other people. And they're at a point now, typically where their company is growing rapidly, and they have to understand, how do I support other people in their high performance? How do I empower other people? How do I let go and step back from having to have all the answers and instead trust other people to have the answers? So that's a lot of my work, is taking these incredibly smart people and helping them understand how they do what they do in harmony with other people so that their companies can explode.
Interesting. Now, all right. So tell me, when you work with these high performance people, they're out there, they're making it happen. Is one of the challenges for them is that where they are and how they think and how they operate is almost natural to them, and for them to turn and equip others is less natural. Is that kind of, do you see that?
That's a fantastic observation, Michael, and a great question. Yes. A common thing that a founder will say to me is, Lee, I don't understand why they can't see this. And I'll be
Yeah.
like, well, they're different from you, right? And they have other qualities that they might not necessarily have the same vision as you have, or the way, one of my particular gifts is I can take in a ton of information and then make it very simple for people.
Hmm.
So I can distill it down and down and down until we have these simple concepts. Here's the actions that we can do. Here's what's happening. Here's all the complex stuff. Or here's actually what's going on for you. What choices do you want to make? So it's helping founders go from being a teacher and somebody who tells you what to do to actually being coaches themselves, where they uncover that from people, they uncover other people's gifts, they lean into that, and they also accept not everybody sees the world the way I do. The
Yeah.
hardest thing I think for human beings is we all think everybody sees the world the way that we do, and then we get frustrated. Why do they not understand me? Or why do they not see this that I see? And we all have different gifts, and it's how do you put all of these gifts together to have a greater whole?
Yeah, I love what you said about you help them, in a sense, learn to be a coach.
Mhm.
And that's really, really important because in sports, right, whether it's bicycling or whether it's football or soccer, you've got the players, but you have the coach. And I think there's a disconnect, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's this old adage we say in America that if those who can do, those who can't teach. And I think it's there's some truth to it, but I think what you're saying is that no, those who can do, and they need to learn how to teach others to equip them. Fair?
Yeah. So I see this a lot with sports coaches and founders. Because you are able to do something very well yourself does not
Yeah.
mean that you can teach other people to do it or help them understand how to do it. And you hit the nail on the head with the natural part. It's so instinctual to some people, athletes or leaders. They struggle to stop and go, how did I figure out how to do this? And I strongly challenge, those that can't teach. It's actually harder to teach something than it is to do it, because to teach it, you have to understand it on a level beyond what you do to do it. Because a lot of doing it is instinctual. Teaching it, you have to understand it fundamentally to break it down into its most smallest parts so that you can help people take those steps from the very beginning of how do we learn something to mastery at the end of it. How do you become an expert at something? Interestingly, many of the best sports coaches I see and have worked with were not great at the sport, and some never even did the sport.
Yeah.
The most successful track cycling coach over the last two Olympics, the Dutch national team coach who I've worked with, never did track cycling. However, he understands the sport, human beings, and physiology on a level of almost no one I've ever met. So his genius is learning and knowing how to apply what he's learned in a way that his athletes can best benefit from it.
Yeah. And so let's talk about founders and these high
Mm.
achievers because um they have to constantly be learning, but they're getting into a realm. Okay, back up. I was in ministry for a decade, okay? And I was
Okay.
climbing the corporate ladder, and my
Hmm.
boss was on the leadership team, all the VPs, and well, my boss left. So what's the natural thing to do, Lee? Tap Michael on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you're now on the leadership team."
Yeah.
I was out of my league.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready, but they pulled me up. And I wonder if there's a lot of high performers out there who aren't ready for this, and they're in an ocean going, I'm not sure what to do. And you can come in and look at it and go, I can help you figure this out. Is that kind of how you work with people?
It is. It's also, I don't believe anyone's ever really ready. Doesn't matter what it is until you do
True.
it, right? You just don't know what it feels like to do it. Until you've led somebody, you don't know what leadership feels like. And you can read all the books, but until you've been there and you understand the stress of letting somebody go, or the first time you do a performance review with somebody, or the first time you try to teach somebody something, you have to have some experience of it to then go, okay, how did that go? And, I like people that are analytical and they look at what they're doing and they stop themselves and they review it and they go, could I just be a little bit better? What are the gain areas that I have here? That's the people that I tend to work with. So I don't believe anyone is ever really ready. And if you get to yourself to the point that you're ready, you probably should have done the thing a year earlier or 2 years earlier, right?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
get, you just got to go for it. I
Yeah.
strongly believe that. And it doesn't mean you don't have fear. It took me a year to get the courage to move from the UK to America.
Mhm.
Every time I've changed career, it's taken me 6 months, a year thinking about, should I do this? Should I not do this before I've done it? And I still wasn't ready when I did it.
Yeah.
However, I learned, and I learned on the job. And you look back and you think, oh God, at the beginning of being a cycling coach, I knew nothing. Yet I thought I knew so much. By
Yeah.
the end of being a cycling coach, I knew so much. Yet I thought, oh God, there's still a lot more I need to know. And there's areas that I'm not a specialist in still. So I think having that humility of that there is more to learn. And then the other part of this, as you were speaking, I was thinking about this humbleness to realize it's okay to ask for help. I was chatting with a CEO of a company yesterday, very, very smart guy. And he said to me, he said, I don't know how I feel about having invited you into work. I know that we need you here to support us. And he said, but it feels like we're almost a bit broken because I'm asking you to come and help us. And then I said, is that true? And he said, he said, I don't think so. He said, I think that's what leadership is these days. And it is. It's to find specialists that can come and support you in being a better version of yourself. That the old days of the authoritative leader or sports coach who had to know it all and it had to be their way are gone, because actually that model's not as effective as sharing the load, not needing to be an expert in everything, bringing people in that have high degrees of expertise in various subjects, and also going, I want to be a bit better. And now what I find, like one of my founders said to me the other day, he was relating to this journey as it's really challenging and it's really hard and it's this slog. And we had this one pivotal conversation. We said, you know what? I'm going to change that. Now I'm relating to it. I'm lucky I get to do this. And I'm
Yes.
lucky that I get to learn all of these things I would never learn if I wasn't in this position of responsibility. So that's how I help people think about it. Is it's a gift to be
Yeah.
able to challenge yourself in this way and to learn and to develop as you grow.
Yeah, it really is. And the word that came to me as you were explaining that, I love the humility aspect is, but what you just helped that one guy figure out is gratitude.
Yes.
It's changing how we look at the situation. And many times it's one question, it's one conversation that is pivotal and changes the trajectory of the future, because now we are thinking and feeling and acting in a different sort of way. And a lot of times I think that's the value of bringing somebody like you onto the team for 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever, because of your experience and the ability to converse. Because who else can that CEO talk with in that form or fashion?
Yeah. And that
Only.
is, you've hit the nail on the head, Michael. It's quite lonely when you get to the top of these organizations because you can't really talk to your staff. It would be inappropriate to be sharing all of your fears and
Right?
issues with them. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can have some vulnerability as a leader and you can
Yeah.
share, I don't know how to do something, but you don't want to put the burden on them to fix that or to support you in it. So often we make mentorship agreements, we join groups where we meet other CEOs, But they might have a vested interest, like, I want you to do it this way because this is the way that I do it.
Yes.
My job is, I don't come into it with any outcome. I'm not coming to it and going, I need you to be this way, or I need you to behave like this, or I need you to do this. And when I find myself doing that, I work with my coach on, right, this is my bias. I need to work on this, because my job is to reflect things to you and to question you in such a way that you get those opportunities to reframe things in a way that is more supportive to your journey and to your goals. So that you have that reframe of, oh, this is the grind and this is overwhelming, to, damn, I'm so lucky I get to do this. A very few people in the world get to run companies that are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year and have the opportunity to learn while they're doing that process.
Right. That's right. No, and that is incredibly valuable, because I dare I say that CEO, that founder, not only is going to be better at his world and his business, but he's going to be better at home, in the community, because he's going to take that attitude of gratitude. Everyone say, wow, I'm blessed. I can do this. We can go these places and not carry the baggage of guilt, maybe, because he could do vacations that a lot of people can't take. Oh, there's guilty. I can't do that. Well, no, actually you can, and it's a gift,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It frees you in all areas, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. And, you know, it's really important that we get these opportunities in life, and that we have people that see us and see what we're doing and can reflect to us, hey, this is what I see for you. One of the reasons that people might choose me as a coach is I'm fairly courageous. I
Mhm.
just have this belief and desire that you can be both loving and supportive and reflect the things that other people aren't telling you.
Yes.
Hey, here's the opportunity you're missing, or hey, here's the way that you're showing up in your relationship. So you talk about relationships. I don't believe I work with anyone that at some point doesn't include their romantic relationships or relationships with family or children or friends in our work, because the way they be shows up in all of their relationships.
Yeah.
So, they want to work on their relationships at work. It's going to affect their relationships outside of work. They work on the relationships outside of work. It's probably going to change how they have relationships in work. Um, and what I would love is, I just want to help people be even better versions of themselves so that they can get more enjoyment from life, so they can really understand what their why is and what their purpose is and what they're here to do. And they can get ever closer to living that purpose as kind of cleanly, freely, and energetically as they can.
Mhm. Okay, so let's talk about who's ideal clients. You said, founders and executive or coaches and things, elite coaches. When you say founder, I mean, so if you're looking at a business owner who's maybe doing a 500,000 a year to 3 or 5 million a year, are they a good candidate, or are you looking at like the guys who are doing hundreds of millions a years? Who is it that is great for you, that you can really impact to help them be that better version of themselves?
Yeah, great question. Typically, my clients are at the 20 to 30 staff stage.
Hmm.
They have a product or a service that is doing really, really well, and their business is scaling very quickly. So I work with scale up stage startups. And then what I'm helping them do is create their leadership teams,
Hmm.
make sure that they do that in a way that is really effective for them as leaders and for the company. I typically do group sessions as well as one-to-one sessions. So I coach
Hmm.
multiple people in the same organization. Usually that's my favorite type of engagement. And I coach them on how to be most effective with each other. So, it's a delicate dance, because I don't give away secrets. I don't say, hey, Bob said this.
Right.
What I do is, if you want to be most effective with Bob, he's the kind of person that really appreciates acknowledgement. So really look for what Bob is doing well, and you're going to get a lot more from him, and that relationship's going to feel better for both of you. I don't tell them why that might be. I don't give away the secrets, right? But I say, this is how to communicate with this person in a way.
Right.
And then I do group calls, and the group calls are particularly effective because it's an opportunity for everyone to come together, get realigned. They get to share grievances or issues or things that are getting in the way of them working well with each other, in a place where they have the safety provided by me, that if it turns into an argument or it gets a bit heated, there is someone there to help them. And it's interesting. I typically don't have to do a lot. It's just holding this space where they can communicate clearly with each other. And I might pause and say, this is what I'm hearing Bob saying, right? This is what I'm hearing Jim saying or Jeanette saying, so that they can really hear it. Or I might stop them and say, let me just speak. Is this what you're saying, Bob? Is this what you want Janet to hear? So it's just supporting them coming together, and they leave those calls. And every time at the end of the calls, they check out with more joy than they started the calls. And they're like, okay, we're realigned. We're back in it with each other. We want to work hard together, and we want to work with each other and for each other. And that's what I really love. I get a lot of joy myself out of helping people get aligned to go and create incredible things.
Yeah.
And typically, companies at that kind of stage, they're into the multiple millions of dollars of income. I'm not cheap, so they need to be
Right.
able to afford my services. So that's one thing, obviously.
Yeah.
And they're at a stage where it's worth it to them to employ somebody like me that's really going to help them scale in a really repeatable and efficient and effective way.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you for that answer, because it's so many times we don't know. We hear people on podcasts, we're like, "Was this me? Is this new?" And I would recommend you just go to your website, and we'll give that here in a minute, because you've got a really good website that talks about a lot of the things that you do and how you operate. But even further than that, click on that little button that says, like, schedule a call with me, or let's have a conversation, because really we get into our head way too much, Lee, and we're like, well, maybe I should reach out. No, maybe I shouldn't. And we disqualify ourselves. And I tell people all the time, it's like, stop that. Make the call, set the appointment. It's not like Lee's going to, put your arm behind your back and put a gun to your head and say, you've got to hire me, right? No, he's about
That's not the way I work,
It's
Michael.
not.
No, I
It's
want
not.
people to work with me because they can see the benefit of it.
Yes.
And if I'm not the right person for somebody, I'll be very clear and say, hey, look, I think this person might be a better coach for you. One of the things that I like about the coaching and the therapy industries is typically a good coach knows who they should be working with and who they shouldn't. And it's the same with a good therapist. And they will recommend somebody else and say, hey, we're not ideal for each other.
Right.
And you're completely right. That initial conversation, you're not agreeing anything with me. You are having a conversation for me to understand you to understand me, and say, is this a good fit for both of us? It needs to
Right.
be a good fit for both of us. And if it is, then we look at, okay, what does this engagement look like? Like, how often are we going to speak to each other? Am I going to work on a retainer? Are we going to do ad hoc sessions? Whatever you need right now, we'll figure out what works best for you. And if it's not me, I'll happily recommend someone else I think would be better for you.
Yeah. And I knew that was going to be your answer, because I can hear your heart. And
I'm not the right coach for everybody, and no
absolutely,
one is.
no
That's
one
not
is.
how it should work.
That's right. That's right. So let me encourage you just to reach out and have the conversation with Lee. Check out his website. So where Lee, if somebody's out there and they're scratching their head, they go, yeah, no, I think you're speaking to me or my buddy or something. Where should they go? What's their best next step?
Yep. So go to the website, leepovey.com. We try to make it as simple as possible. You can email me, lee@leepovey.com. Again, making it as simple as we possibly
Love it.
can,
Love it.
and set up a chat with me. And we will spend an hour together, and we'll talk about what you are looking for, what your business needs, what your aims are, what your goals are. And I guarantee by the end of that hour, you will know whether we should be working together or not. And I will be very clear about that.
That's awesome. Can't make it any easier than that. I love the simplicity of the domains and all of that. I'm going to capture all of that. I'm going to put it in the show notes. Reach out to Lee Povey and let him just have that conversation. See what it means to develop an Olympic mindset. See what it means to take your fast scaling business and manage it better, lead it better, because you're leading yourself better, and it's going to impact not just your business, but your personal life, your community, and it's going to make life so much more fun, because you're going to have an attitude of gratitude. You're going to have humility. You're going to learn a bunch of things, because Lee's got a great background. So, man, Lee, this has been lots of fun for me. Thanks for being my guest. Thanks for doing what you do to really call people up and help them get out of their heads so many times, break through, and make a bigger impact in their team, their family, their business. I appreciate that so much.
My pleasure, Michael. Wonderful questions. I can see why you're so good at this.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. Tune in again next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.